important to this great state, and I believe truly a reason for all of our success here. Thank you. This is an announcement today that I fully planned on doing with our esteemed great governor, Ron DeSantis, and unfortunately the weather did not want to permit that today. So he is stuck in Tallahassee with a plane and 2 other people who were going to be joining us. With their apologies, the fog just would not let up in time for him to be here, and I didn't want to keep all of you waiting. So we will endeavor to give this the full weight and merit it deserves without him. And certainly he is with us in spirit, and certainly one of the reasons that we are standing here today with this announcement. As you can see, I am standing here with Colonel Gary Howes. He is the head of the Florida Highway Patrol in the state of Florida, as well as a man that needs no introduction, Sheriff Snyder of Martin County, who has been a true partner throughout my tenure as the Attorney General. This morning, a trooper with the Florida Highway Patrol presented a criminal report affidavit to Judge Bauer here in Martin County and obtained an arrest warrant for attempted felony murder for Brian Ruth, the would-be assassin to the President-elect Donald J. Trump. Rightly, the American people and the citizens of Florida had a lot of questions as to how a second attempt on the life of President Trump took place so shortly after the events in July in Pennsylvania. And after that took place right here in our state, Governor DeSantis promptly issued an executive order directing the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, the Florida Highway Patrol, and my office to begin investigating immediately all of the facts and circumstances surrounding any violations of state crime surrounding those events. And I believe it's important that we start from that executive order and provide a backdrop to the announcement here today, because I think it's important to the American people and certainly citizens of this state to understand the work that went into standing here today making this announcement, as well as the challenges that took place and the frustration that we felt along the way and lack of cooperation and support from federal agents. At the time, Governor DeSantis instructed us to begin our investigation, we immediately reached out and began communicating with our federal partners. As soon as we began those overtures, we immediately were confronted with a lack of willingness to allow us access to the crime scene, an unwillingness to provide evidence that was collected, an unwillingness to allow us to accompany witness interviews, and the list goes on and on. And in those discussions, both by prosecutors and federal agents, it was made known that they intended to shut down our investigation and invoke federal jurisdiction in doing so. We made that known that we did not believe that the statute that they were citing to support that should be interpreted in the way that they suggested, which meant they believed we should not proceed with an investigation. We told them we would proceed. They refused to cooperate or provide evidence. We continued to reach out in an amicable manner. We continued to offer meetings, and no evidence was shared with us. Because of that, and because of the assistance that they were shutting down our investigation and asserting jurisdiction, the state of Florida, under the direction of Governor DeSantis and myself, filed suit in October against Attorney General Merrick Garland so that we could, what we believe was within our right, to pursue state law charges for state law violations in the state of Florida. Thereafter, we continued to attempt to make contact with the federal government, with the prosecutors. We informed them that as a result of the actions of the defendant and his attempt to flee on the date in question, September 15th of this year, as the stop was made and traffic was slowed, an accident happened and a little girl was seriously injured and almost died. As a result of that, we felt compelled to seek justice on her behalf and her family that will never be the same as they cope with her injuries. And so we continued to reach out with the federal government, explain to them the need to pursue these charges, explain to them that we were doing this to provide justice to this 6-year-old little girl. And again, they responded, we should not bring charges, we should not investigate further, and they would not provide us with information. The excuse and the reasoning kept coming back to the need to protect the case and national security. I have never been asked to meet with anyone to discuss how national security is implicated in shutting down the state of Florida's investigation. Our statewide prosecutor has never been invited to discuss how national security would merit shutting down our statewide investigation. To my knowledge, none of our agents have been asked to discuss what the implications may be to national security as a reason to shutting down our investigation. In fact, even after promises that someone from the National Security Division would meet with our statewide prosecutor or contact our statewide prosecutor, that never happened. And so we explained we would move forward with charges of attempted felony murder to pursue justice on behalf of this little girl. To date, they have never contacted us or supported us in this endeavor in any way. We have sought information by subpoenas and witness interviews to support this information, to support our affidavit and complaint. And we have also used publicly available information and filing that has come through the federal investigation. And so this morning, we obtained an arrest warrant supported by a criminal report affidavit and complaint. We will make that available to the press. As you know, when the executive order came out, I stood with Governor DeSantis and assured not just Floridians but the American people that we would endeavor to be transparent in this process. Rightly so, there were many questions surrounding the agency, prosecuting the president-elect, and at the same time investigating his attempted murder. We offered to be a partner, not only to vindicate those crimes that occurred here in our state under our own state laws, but to also provide an assurance and accountability that a trusted independent partner was part of the process. Governor DeSantis and I were both federal prosecutors. We have both worked with federal agencies. We both believe in the mission of law enforcement, both federal and state, to hold criminals accountable and pursue justice. We believe that these agencies are essential to protecting a free people under a rule of law. But that indeed is their mission. And we both believe that agencies need to be held accountable to that mission and held accountable to we the people who are the true bosses of these agencies. And so part of making available the affidavit and the arrest warrant to the press in full is we want to live up to that promise to be transparent and accountable, as we both assured when we stood here and talked about our intent to investigate. The affidavit is 18 pages long. We will provide that to you immediately following this press conference. I will go into a little bit about the charge that underlies this attempted felony murder. Following the assassination attempt, the defendant chose to flee north on I-95. At this point, he was expected to have been the shooter based on witness testimony, and that was informed to those officers that were stopping him. Once they located him, protecting the public, not knowing what was in that vehicle in terms of explosive devices, they had to stop traffic in both directions in order to effectuate the stop, make the arrest, and assure the safety of the public. It was during that stop that a tragic accident occurred that seriously injured a 6-year-old girl who was traveling with her family. When you couple those terrible injuries together with his other criminal conduct, which we believe rises to the level of domestic terrorism, it turns his actions into an attempted felony murder case. I am grateful to the law enforcement officers who worked this case. I am grateful to the sheriffs who provided timely and efficiently the evidence we needed to proceed. I am grateful to all of our statewide law enforcement officials that work hand in hand with the statewide prosecutors to get us to this point. I expect that this investigation will not stop. It will continue. It will continue to be transparent and accountable to Floridians. We will continue to reach out to the federal government to partner with them and ensure that all of these charges are pursued fully and forthrightly, accountable to the people. I expect a new day is coming. I expect that next month we will see new leadership in agencies that will rightly reach out as intended and as is done historically and commonly to law enforcement agencies within our state and partner in good faith as we pursue our respective charges against the defendant. Attorney General Pam Bondi, my predecessor here in the state of Florida, may soon be the Attorney General of the Department of Justice. And we may also see a new director at the FBI. I personally have strongly supported these nominations, leading efforts and writing to the Senate to promptly and thoroughly consider these nominations. And to those senators that would advise and provide consent on the nominations of President-elect Trump, I ask that you fully consider and give deference and merit to these nominations. Much ado has been made that some of these nominations may not be the traditional type of candidates that we are seeing, that we have seen historically. And I would submit to you, we are not in a traditional moment in this nation. This nation has never seen 2 assassination attempts so closely on a president-elect by an agency that was investigating him at the same time. I can tell you as a former federal prosecutor, I have never seen such an unwillingness or lack of communication and a joint effort to pursue charges against the same individual for the same criminal acts. A new day is coming, and I would suggest that bringing in new and fresh perspective to redirect agencies to their true mission, and that is to hold criminals accountable and protect our people. Indeed, the people that have been nominated, Pam Bondi, Mr. Patel, they love this country. They love what it is meant to be, and that is a land of free people with a government that is truly for and by the people, and that is accountable to them. And I expect, with fresh leadership and fresh perspective, coupled with 2 people who can communicate with the American public, that will renew the faith in our institutions, which is essential for the success and continuity of this great nation. So I appreciate you being here today as we announce these charges. We're going to hear briefly from Corporal House.
Thank you, Attorney General Moody, and thank you not only for your steadfast defense of Floridians, but also your support of Florida law enforcement. That's very much appreciated. As the General mentioned, first of all, good morning. My name is Gary Howes from the Florida Highway Patrol. And as the General mentioned, Governor DeSantis and my boss, Executive Director Kerner, they're scheduled to be here, but we're not able to due to the weather. That day in September 2004, following the attempted assassination attempt of now President-elect Donald Trump, Governor Ron DeSantis issued Executive Order 24197, which in part directed Florida Highway Patrol to conduct a criminal investigation into state law violations, like the General said, resulting from the heinous acts attempted on the life of President Trump. From the very start, it was clear that we would not have the support of our federal partners. In fact, it became very apparent that federal efforts were underway to prevent concurrent criminal investigation into state law violations. As part of this FHP criminal investigation, our agency issued and executed on no less than 18 individual court processes, including 3 separate search warrants and 15 subpoenas. State troopers, with the assistance of multiple Florida sheriffs and our partners with the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, we collected, examined, and convicted literally countless pieces of evidence in this process. This morning, as General Moody announced, following an exhaustive and complex criminal investigation, criminal investigators from Florida Highway Patrol, they submitted and received a felony attempted murder arrest warrant for defendant Ryan Roth. We extend our heartfelt gratitude to Attorney General Ashley Moody and her team with the Office of Statewide Prosecution, who have empowered this investigation to be successful. While this investigation is still active, we transition into a prosecutorial posture led by the Attorney General, and we are specifically very confident in our capabilities to bring this to a successful conclusion. Governor DeSantis ordered this state investigation where other leaders would not have. In doing so, he was protecting and vindicating not only the sovereign rights of our state and the people, but most importantly, the victims whose lives have been inexplicably and forever harmed by the alleged actions of this defendant. Florida Highway Patrol has always found strength in our federal and state law enforcement partnerships, and we maintain our willingness to coordinate, share, and deconflict with any federal law enforcement, even during the pendency of this investigation. We remain hopeful that in the future, our federal law enforcement partners will readopt the same courtesy as it has always been in the best interest of all the citizens that we serve. Again, General Moody, thank you for your leadership and everything you do on behalf of Florida.
Thank you, General Moody. Thank you, Colonel. To our press friends that are here today, welcome to the Martin County Sheriff's Office. Briefly, I'll start off by thanking the men and women of the Martin County Sheriff's Office, our first responders who put themselves in harm's way on that day. The entire Sheriff's Office that was available, mobilized, went out to the interstate. We were fortunate. And through good police work and cooperation from the Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office, we were able to apprehend a suspect who had every intention, obviously, of killing then candidate for President Donald Trump, and would have probably succeeded if it had not been for a witness and for the good work of his federal detectives. I would like to say this, thinking about what the General said about the obstruction that our trooper friends had endured from our normal federal partners. I would say this, that obstruction is not coming from the ground level FBI agents. Those are good men and women that work hard to put themselves in harm's way. I want to see justice. I would suspect, General, that this obstruction comes much higher. It probably emanates from some political configuration way above those core FBI agents. We work with federal partners every day. If there's a bank robbery, a kidnapping, a crime with multiple jurisdictions, they're glad to work with us. We have no trouble working with them. So you can rest assured this is a political something from way above the working men and women of the FBI. And then also I want to say that Sheriff Bradshaw would have been here today. This obviously, the beginning of this crime occurred in his jurisdiction, but he sends his best general. He had a commitment that he could not get out of. And then finally, I would say this. We have been proud to work with you, General, and with your statewide prosecutor. We've done everything we could to assist you, and I'll just take a moment of privilege and thank Governor DeSantis, who's been one of the best governors we've ever had for law enforcement. He's done more for us and our industry to keep us safe, to help us attract good law enforcement. We have people from all over the country that want to be cops here in Florida because it's a cop-friendly state, and we're proud that he's our governor, and we stand ready to continue helping in the investigation. I understand ours was a supporting role, but it was an important role. Had Deputy Shaw, standing somewhere back here, had not encountered Rob, he would likely gotten away for at least some time. And when I went to Mar-a-Lago, now President-elect Trump said, thank you, I can sleep a little easier. So to my friends out there in the Florida Highway Patrol, the deputies of the Martin County Sheriff's Office, our friends here at Fire Rescue, worked hard. That poor 6-year-old, we want to see justice for her. But you did your best and stabilized her. And to the rest of you all, thank you so much. It's a team effort. And the best government is the government closer to the people. And we see it here. The FHP troopers, our people here, we're the tip of the spear, and we're standing ready to help anywhere we can, General. Thank you. We sure do appreciate your time.
Team effort should resonate and be the theme taken away from this. In every effort to pursue a bad actor, a criminal, and bring accountability, it is a team effort. And I echo everything the sheriff said in terms of the type of person and the ranks of law enforcement, both federal and state, the type of person it takes to raise that hand and swear an oath to protect people and put their safety behind the safety of others. That takes a courageous, selfless person. And I am grateful, having worked with federal agents, having worked with state agents, local law enforcement, having worked with first responders that help stabilize victims. I'm grateful. What we want is to get back to the true mission of law enforcement and that cooperative effort and teamwork of law enforcement that is often composed of federal agencies working in tandem with our state agencies. I fully expect that. And certainly as a wife of a law enforcement officer, both state and federal along the long career, I certainly know and appreciate what goes into these efforts and jobs. And so we want everyone to know in the rank and file in these law enforcement agencies, we appreciate you. We would not live under the blanket of freedom and safety without you. We support you, and we've got to get back to the true missions of these law enforcement agencies. And I expect fully we were on our way to doing that. I'd be happy to take any questions that you may have at this time. Yes, ma'am.
Good morning. Just a quick question here. Will Ruth appear in first appearance sometime soon for this new charge? And if so, what county are these new charges filed in, Martin or Palm Beach?
It's going to be within the circuit, and I will let our statewide prosecutor come up and tell you. Right now, if you will remember, he has been charged federally, so he's being held right now on those federal charges. At some point, he will be brought over to face the charges that have been filed here. I expect that there might be some arguments made to the courts regarding when that happens, just based on how this has transpired and how we've gotten here and the arguments regarding jurisdiction.
So Ruth is currently in, I guess, in the Palm Beach County Jail. Is that right?
He's being held in federal custody. We filed our complaint, our report affidavit, and our arrest warrant here in the 19th Judicial Circuit for Martin County.
So the crash that he's being charged, that he's being linked to, I guess, where specifically was that? Like on I-95 or?
Yes, that happened on I-95 right here in Martin County, and it happened very closely in time to when he was stopped in Martin County and taken into custody.
So okay.
Attorney General, you mentioned how the federal authorities were not helping in your guys' view. Have you guys reached out at all to officials of Pennsylvania to see if they had the same struggles that you guys were having in the assassination matters?
I'm quite confident that our agents have spoken with many other law enforcement officials as it relates to that. I don't know that. I will tell you, it has always been my practice, both as a person and as a professional, to be amicable and try to achieve a common goal with communication, with the expectation that people would treat us the way we would treat them, and that just did not happen here. We did not stop. It was not as though we initially reached out, were denied access, and we stopped making overtures. We sent letters, we offered meetings, even after we filed suit against Merrick Garland for their refusal to work with us as we brought charges for the attempted murder of President-elect Trump. We continued to make overtures and express a desire to work together to share evidence, to preserve evidence with federal authorities so that we can expeditiously bring these charges on behalf of the little girl. And that was as well rebuffed. No information was given with the sight of national security.
Can you give us a general understanding of how this crash occurred? Like, was the vehicle that this young girl was traveling going north and ran off the road? Can you just give us a little bit of a general understanding of how it occurred?
Yes, so that as traffic was slowed and stopped in both directions on I-95, those actions resulted in people coming to a stop, and there was an accident that occurred and her injuries resulted. Specifically, it will be laid out in detail in the affidavit, and it will be released immediately following this press conference.
Okay.
Last question, please.
All right. Again, we appreciate you being here. Thank you so much, and thank you to all the folks standing behind me for your willingness to assist. Appreciate it.